Welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. We're going to be roasting on my Mill City 500 gram roaster. This is a natural gas roaster. I've had it since 2017. It's done a lot of roasts and it's been a great roaster. I absolutely love it. And we're going to be connected to Artisan today, logging this roast. Today's video, the focus of today's video is really how exciting roasting coffee at home can be. And this is the beginning video for my 200 series playlist that I'm going to be creating. We just finished my 100 series, which was an introduction to home coffee roasting. And it dealt with all of the basic concepts of finding the right roaster, finding the right coffee, understanding roasting events and using your senses, and then ultimately learning about roast level and then how to control the roaster. All of those things are foundational things that you need to be able to do in order to move forward in the roasting hobby. You can have a lot of fun living in the 100 series. You can have great coffee living in the 100 series. But when you start to move forward and build on those skills and experiment, then the world opens up of roasting coffee at home. The experiences open up. And that's what we're going to be experiencing here today with this coffee. I'm roasting a natural processed Ethiopian coffee, and I'm roasting it for espresso. I've never done this before. I'm giving it a shot, and I'm going to see how it turns out. I'm looking for sweetness. I'm looking for a little bit of fruit. I want the coffee to be roasted and developed enough where I get good extraction. I want the coffee to be soluble enough where we can extract as much of those flavors as possible with the espresso brew. But yeah, so that's kind of the purpose in this. I've never done this before, and as we get roasting here, I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about kind of the opportunities that are available to us here as home coffee roasters compared to, believe it or not, professional coffee roasters. These people are day after day roasting coffee for the cafes, and they're in the production mindset most of the time. But we have the ability to enjoy our hobby, and so we'll be talking about that. But first I want to get this roaster ready to go. It's warming up right now, and then we'll get started. Okay, the roaster is idling at 171 C right now. I've got 500 grams of an Ethiopian Kambata natural processed coffee ready to go. We're going to be doing a roast that's going to last about 13 minutes. My goal is to have a low and slow roast. We're going to have a lower rate of rise. The rate of rise is going to be fairly consistently horizontal going across once we get out of the dry phase. And we're going to have consistently increasing temperatures, but at a slow rate. And that's why the roast is going to take 13 minutes to roast. And again, I want a fully developed coffee. I don't want a really dark coffee. I'm looking for a medium roast, and I'm excited to do this. So let's get going, and then we'll walk through what I'm doing, all right? All right, we've charged the roaster. I have my airflow set at 40. Here we go. My airflow is set at 40. And my power is going to be set at 50%. And our drum speed is set at 34. This should get me to a dry time of about 6 minutes, and then from there my target of about 10 minutes to 10 minutes and 30 seconds for first crack, and then another 2 minutes for development times. I did not do a soak with this machine. I'm using low power, so I don't want to give up too much of the energy that I do have. I'm going to be bumping the energy up a couple of times during this roast, We'll go from 50% to 60% and then to 70%, and then we'll be making some adjustments along the way. All right, so my dry time is starting to be calculated here in Artisan. You can see that on the screen here. It is counting down, and our rate of rise is starting to climb. It's going to be climbing up to about maybe 10, and then it's going to start to dwindle down. Okay, so we're going to bump our air up to 40. We're at 40 for our air. 45 is what I put it at. Our rate of rise is starting to come down now. I want to try to keep my rate of rise around 7 or 8 if I can, and to keep it at that level through the rest of the roast. So I'm going to go ahead and bump the power up to 60%. I'm using natural gas, and it's not an electric roaster. The dials, I'm using a valve. It's not digitized, so I can't bump it up, 10% here, 10% there. But what I've done is I've created basically marks on my gas gauge based on my full power, full gas amount, which I'm calling 100%. And no gas is 0%, and so I've kind of calculated the increments, and so that's what you're seeing marked here on my roast. So we're at about a 6-minute dry time is the estimate from Artisan, so that's good news. We have consistently rising temperatures that we're seeing here, both the red line, which is the exhaust temperature, and the blue line, which is the bean temperature. So what is this going to do for me? Why am I taking so long for the dry phase? Well, what I don't want to do is I don't want to overheat my roaster, number one. Number two, I want the heat to be able to penetrate through the bean, and by giving it a little bit more time, we're having, we're not just roasting the outside of the bean, we're allowing the heat to penetrate the bean, and so that's why I'm having a slower dry time. All right, so let's check the beans out. Yep, we are at full yellow. I'm probably about 15 seconds late, so I'm going to go ahead and change that in my roast properties, and it's 15 seconds late would put me at 6:05. because that coffee was definitely yellow. All right, and I am going to bump my power up a half of a notch here. I'm going to watch what's happening. I don't want it to go much lower in my rate of rise than about 7. I don't want it to go much below that, and that's because I want to make my my time of about 10 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm going to bump this up to 7 for my power, and here we go. Power is at 7, 70 for 70%. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the difference between a home roaster and a professional roaster, and the things that we are able to do that professional roasters really don't have time to do because they need to be roasting coffee all the time for their customers. We have an opportunity to experiment and to try different roasting technique approaches. Now, professionals can do this too, but we just seem to have more freedom to be able to do that as home coffee roasters. And that's something that we should do because the equipment that we're using is a lot different than the professionals are using. We're dealing with smaller batches, so we're not wasting as much coffee. And I just think that it's a good idea for us to keep that in mind, that we have an opportunity to experiment, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm experimenting with this roast. Now, I've been successful by making these power adjustments to keep my rate of rise fairly consistent where I want it to be. And how did I know to do that, or how did I know to make that adjustment? And I mentioned this in a couple videos ago, that as you roast more, you gain more experience. You become more familiar with your machine, and you know the adjustments that you need to make in order to hit your target values that you want to hit, your target event times, your target temperatures, whatever. You'll notice that I haven't even talked about temperatures here today, because I can talk about my temperatures, but the temperatures on your roaster are going to be different. I can guarantee it. So I'm focusing on event times, and I'm going to be focusing on roast color. Speaking of roast color, this is what the coffee looks like right now. It's kind of a cinnamon, and it's definitely starting to get a little bit of a sweet smell going on right now. And our first crack target temperature, or target time, is 10.5 minutes. So I'm on track for where I want to be for my first crack event. That's awesome. I'm going to kick up the air a little bit, just a tiny bit, get a little more airflow, a little more convection, but I don't want to drive down my rate of rise. I want to try to keep that in that range. We're at 181C. First crack is going to happen in about 10 degrees on this roaster. Maybe a little more. This is a natural. Oh, I'm starting to get a little fruit smell there. I can even smell that here. Alright, I'm going to lower my power just a little bit. Down to 60%. And I'm going to watch that. And then I'm going to actually bump it up again, I think. I'm hearing some cracks. And that's first crack. I'm going to bump my air up to 50. Air is at 50. And I think we're on track. This is really good. I'm excited about this. We can take a look here. Okay. Bump it up to 7. Just to compensate for the crash. Nice. Back to 6. And I'm going to keep it at 7. We got a nice crack going. Definitely not a waning crack. Let's take a look at the coffee. The beans are starting to swell. This is one of the indicators for me. I'm watching the bean size. And I want that bean to get bigger. Alright, so we called first crack at 11:02, so I'm looking for a drop of around 13 minutes. Ooh, there's some fruit. Yep, there's some fruit. I'm at 199C. I want to go to about 204 on my roaster. Yeah, this is nice. Beans are starting to get bigger. We're going to smooth out just near the end. Alright. 202. Okay. So I want the acidity, I want the vinegary, sharp acidity to go away. And we're starting to fade a little bit. Alright, this is where I drop it. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to hit drop, and we're dropping the coffee. Okay, it was a 13.5-minute roast, and we had 18.5% development. That's really not a good way to measure this roast, the total roast time and then how much time in each of the phases. So we had 2.5 minutes in development, and I'm okay with that because I wanted to knock down that acidity. And we didn't have high temperature increases, which is really good. I didn't want a really dark roast. I wanted a medium roast. So let's take a look at this. And this is the roast that we got. Yeah, the lights are kind of bright right now, but this is definitely, it's a nice medium. It's not what I would call a dark roast, but it is definitely well developed. I'm going to go ahead and weigh this coffee and see what kind of weight loss we have, and that'll give me another glimpse of the roast level for this. We started out with 500 grams. And we ended up with 425.5. 15% weight loss. So this is definitely a solid medium roast. Beans are definitely fully developed. Even roast color, especially for a natural. That's unusual, which, you know, usually I'm roasting lighter than this, so I see some variation. And the next thing we'll do is we'll get out the color meter. Puts that right in the medium range. And so far I'm really excited. This is right on where I wanted to be. Next is going to be the taste. I'm about to have this delicious smelling espresso that I roasted here on this machine, and that is some of the excitement that I'm talking about for a home roaster. We can roast coffee any way we want to, and we can enjoy that experience and learn from it, make changes if we need to make changes. I got to tell you, I'm smelling some sweetness. I am smelling some really nice aromas here, including some sort of a little bit of a kind of a citrusy orange note in here, along with some deeper, darker notes like a chocolate kind of a note. Yeah, so let's go in for the taste. But before I do that, if you like this content, if I've been sharing some things with you that you've learned about or learned from, or you just want to thank me and say, hey, Mike, keep doing what you're doing, hit the like button. I would really appreciate that. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, that's always awesome as well. So yeah, this is my espresso that I made on my Turin Legato version 2 I got from the espresso outlet. Our family bought that espresso maker, and it's been doing a great job for us. I've been very happy. Okay, so here we go. Wow, smooth, packed full of flavor, no bitterness. There is the kind of a spice and like a chocolate layer that just hits the tongue, and there is kind of this dark, like a chocolate covered orange that is in here that is really enjoyable. I'm surprised. I didn't know that how it was going to turn out, and I'm happily surprised. Yeah, so if I had to change anything on this, maybe I would go just another degree lighter on my end temperature or so. I think I targeted 204 on my roaster, and we talked about temperatures. So for my roaster, it ended up being a 206 degree drop temperature, and I initially wanted a 204 degree drop temperature. So I think maybe 205 or 204 would be interesting to try. So I would say for this experiment, this was a win. So the takeaway is that we try different types of roasting, and we experience what we taste, we experience the process, and we learn from that, and we make changes. So you might be thinking, well, that doesn't do me any good if I don't know how to roast coffee yet. You're exactly right. So in the following episodes, we will be talking about more elements of roasting, more concepts that will help us build and be able to kind of auto-tune ourselves. So we'll be able to look at a bean, we'll be able to smell a bean, and we'll be able to kind of work all the way through this so that we can get creative on our own and we can experiment and try different things. So I'm hoping that that is something that you have kind of seen and understood here in this video. And again, my point I mentioned earlier about the difference between a home roaster and a professional roaster, I was starting to talk about some of those things because it's easy for us to watch videos or to read books and learn from people, and we have to be careful. While most of the concepts are the same, we are home roasters using appliance type equipment, smaller type roasters, and we're not under the gun to make a coffee that other people are going to enjoy. We can make and roast coffee that we're going to enjoy. So we've got all kinds of freedom as home coffee roasters, and we need to take advantage of that freedom and experiment and learn along the way. And who knows, you may be the next person to come up with a new trend in coffee roasting and coffee brewing. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great day roasting. We'll see you next time.